This edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices magazine in Flipboard on your iPad or iPhone. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have Joe Kissell back with us this time with a brand new book, one of the brand new Take Control crash courses. Joe, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Sure, and you look vaguely familiar. Haven't I met you somewhere before?
Once or twice, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you've been here before.
Maybe so.
Only 20 or 30 times this year, which says something knows how prolific you are.
Yes.
So, Joe, this one is, and help me get it right. This is Digital Sharing for Apple Users, a Take Control crash course.
Yes. We're going for the longest possible title. And I wanted to add, like, with malice aforethought, or I don't know. I mean, clearly it's not enough words. I've been so used to saying take control of blank for all these years that now that we have this new series, it's, that's a new thing to get rid of, or to get used to. You probably, for anyone that watched your interview with Tanya about her crash course book, you may remember sort of the thinking behind the new series and the new titles. So they're crash courses. So that's why we have to have a crash course in the title, because unlike what I often do in my Take Control books, which is give you a lot of detail, spell out the hows and the whys and the background and help make you smarter, this is sort of the least you need to know. This is just quick and dirty. The chapters are, they're 1 to 3 pages long. You don't have 10, 20, 30-page chapters like you do in some of my other books. They're short. So this is just the basics, just to get you started on this particular topic. But since we want people to know that it comes from the same people that make the Take Control books, we have to call them a Take Control crash course, not just a crash course. But then we knew that we wanted to have a book about sharing. But we wanted to make sure that people didn't think we were talking about physically sharing your iPhone with somebody else or your Mac, not the object. It's the stuff on the object. So we decided to call it digital sharing, not just sharing. And we wanted to encompass Macs and iOS devices and the Apple TV without saying take control of digital sharing with your Mac, iPad, iPhone, iPod Touch, or Apple TV, a Take Control crash course. So we conflated all that to digital sharing for Apple users. So there was a logic to the title, although, man, it really is a mouthful, and I'd be the first person to admit that. But basically, if you have some Apple product or more than one, and you want to be able to share stuff on that product with other people or with other devices, this book tells you 37 different ways to do that. And it's really more than 37, but there are 37 little chapters, so 37 different takes on this concept of sharing.
Joe, there seems to be so much, I think, almost pressure to share. And I'm not quite, I want you to explain what kind of sharing you're talking about here, because, they want you share my pictures, share my friends, share what I had for breakfast, share, where I went last night. Or is it share my iTunes library with my Apple TV and my iPhone? There are a lot of different variations here. Everybody's telling us we should be sharing, but nobody's telling us exactly how. I'm hoping you can resolve that for us.
Yes, well, of course, that's the very first thing I talk about in the book, and it's a little bit of a pet peeve for me that this word sharing has been so overloaded with different meanings. It's kind of like the word cloud, which we've talked about before. It can mean anything, so it kind of means nothing. So I give this example that if I were to share a candy bar with you, then neither one of us would get the whole candy bar. We would each get part of it. And as a result, I will not share a candy bar with you because I want the whole thing. On the other hand, if I share a taxi with you, then we both get where we're going. The taxi doesn't go away. We haven't consumed it. And it's actually beneficial for both of us because we both pay less than we would have if we weren't sharing it. So there are all these different senses in which the word share is used, and those apply in the digital world as well. So what I've done is I've broken down this concept, this broad idea of sharing, into 4 specific tasks, and they're all types of sharing. The word share is a fair way of expressing these, but in the individual chapter titles, I don't use the word share unless that's what I really mean. So one thing that I talk about that is sometimes referred to as sharing is syncing. So I have some stuff on some contacts, appointments, email messages, whatever. I have some stuff on one of my devices. I want to have exactly, identical copies of those things on another device somewhere. And when I make a change to some part of this on one device, I want that change to be reflected on the other devices too. So that's syncing. You could say, well, I'm sharing my contacts between my iPhone and my Mac. Yeah, you sort of are, but what you're really doing is you're syncing. You have contacts on one device and they sync up to the cloud and then they sync down to another device. A second thing I talk about is sending. So let's say I have a document that I've created and I just want you to have it. I don't want you to be able to collaboratively edit it with me or anything. I just want you to have it's a picture or it's a PDF or whatever. Maybe I'll pop it in an email message, or maybe I'll share it using Dropbox, or there are a lot of other ways. But basically, I'm just lobbing it over the fence. I have it. Now you have a copy too. I've sent it to you. And then there's broadcasting. So right now, I am broadcasting video of myself to you, and you're recording it. You can also broadcast other kinds of things that maybe you don't commonly think of as broadcasting, but when I have some audio or video playing on my iPhone and I want to look at it on my Apple TV, that's really broadcasting, because whatever happens here also happens there, but on the receiving device, it doesn't go backwards. It's not syncing. The receiving device has no influence over the sending device. But then there's what I call sharing, which is really sharing, and that would be something like the two of us are editing a Google Doc together, or a Pages doc on iCloud.com. So when I type, you see what I'm typing live on your screen and vice versa. So we are sharing one particular document. It's not like I have my copy and you have yours. No, there is just one copy. It's probably in the cloud, and we are editing it together, or we're both in some way accessing that shared resource. So I'm very explicit in the book about what brand or what flavor of sharing are we talking about in any particular chapter, because sometimes what you call sharing is really sending, sometimes it's really broadcasting, sometimes it's really syncing.
You've just capsulized exactly why I feel so conflicted and confused about this whole thing, because it has come to mean so many things. So let's start out with the basics. What candy bar is it that you're going to have that you're not going to share with me?
Well, the great thing about the digital world is that most of the ways you can share stuff don't leave you with any less. So, okay, if we were, we're both editing a Google Doc together, you could select half of it and delete it, and then I wouldn't have that anymore. But most cases, if I share a playlist with you, or a document, or a photo, or and any of a dozen other things, I still have a copy. I still have mine. Maybe there is only one copy and we're both accessing the same one, or maybe you now have an extra copy of it, but I can share things across my devices and with other people without losing that thing. So that's, hey, yay for digital sharing. If only you could do the same thing with ice cream, because that would be awesome.
What?
I share ice cream with you, but I don't have any less. So let's see. I talk about sharing. I'm just going to sort of read down some of the things in my table of contents: photo libraries, photos and videos, photo albums, files, folders, links, contacts, calendars, reminders, email, things on your local network like optical discs and printers. You can share your iOS device's internet connection with your Mac or other devices. You can share one device's screen with another. You can send audio from one device to another, share phone calls and texts, browser tabs, bookmarks, web links, passwords, games and game scores, radio stations, playlists, iTunes libraries, and even tasks where you use handoff to start a task on one device and pick it up on another. So those are, there are 37 chapters, so 30 different kinds of, combinations of things that you can share and modes of sharing them. And I could have written more. I had to just say, okay, enough is enough. Maybe in a future update of the book, we'll talk about sharing other sorts of things too. But I think this is enough.
I love that. The list you just went down, I probably understand some of them. I'm not about to say even a majority, but you're right. There are different definitions of sharing all those things. They all use the term sharing, but sometimes you are, like you say, duplicating. Sometimes you're giving access to. Sometimes you're transferring. So this now, the whole digital sharing thing makes a lot more sense as to what you mean.
Yeah, and when a company says, "Hey, we have this new product or service, and what's great is that you can share X," they always mean something different from what you expect. And I outlined the book, and I started, I'd start working on a topic, and I'd assume, well, of course, I can share, share sub 4, some particular version of sharing this thing, and I realized, oh, I can't actually share this that way. I can only send it, or I can only broadcast, or I can only do something to it. So I learned quite a lot when I was working on this, that my assumptions about what you could do with things sometimes were too narrow and sometimes were too broad.
And also this many sharing topics in a control crash course. I know that because what'd you say? Each chapter is like 1 to 3 pages, if that.
Yep.
So I'm not going to get into the real nitty gritty. I'm just going to be told, okay, this is how you do. This is the one step or the 27 steps I need to complete this. But at the end, I'm going to have this objective achieved. And I love that.
Yeah. So a typical chapter starts with, 2 or 3 paragraphs explaining what it is, what the general parameters are of this type of sharing of this type of data. And then just steps with very little, very few extra words. It's very, very concise. And a lot of these chapters, I frankly felt kind of frustrated, because I felt, okay, now people are going to say, yes, I followed these steps, but what about X? Or I followed these steps, but I know that you can also do something similar with this other kind of data. Why didn't he say anything about that? Or what's really going on behind the scenes when you do this? Isn't that the sort of thing Joe would usually tell me? And I usually would. And I had to, very, very often I had to, metaphorically bite my tongue, because we just that's what this format is all about. Is it's bite-sized. It's having stuff that it's only going to take you a few minutes to read one of these things, and also really easy. So the other aspect of this, of course, is all these chapters are designed for sharing with other people. So we make it really easy for you to post links to a particular chapter on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or however you want to do it, so that other people can have access to the same content. So it's just sharing all around.
Yeah, that was something Tanya had talked about, the ability to share each of these chapters, or a chapter with a friend. And so if I have someone for my user group who says, "Hey, I want to know how to do this," well, I'll say, "You know what? I'll send you a link tonight, and here's the chapter for it." Bang, and it'll introduce them to the Take Control crash course, but it'll also help them achieve their objective.
Right.
So very nice. So we're talking, from the list you just ran down, we're talking about some Mac stuff, we're talking about some iOS stuff, we're talking about some cloud stuff.
Yeah, all of the above. And really, this book is more like 37 individual articles loosely arranged around a central theme than a conventional book on a certain topic, because I really did have to approach every single chapter as an isolated, standalone thing that didn't depend on any prior information, and really most of these kinds of things literally have nothing to do with each other. I mean, if you're using, for example, OS X's built-in file sharing feature, that has absolutely no relationship whatsoever to Game Center. I mean, the two are utterly unrelated. The only way they're related is that you can apply the word share to both of them. And that's weak, you know. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with this collection of articles, if you will. I think it's a great reference for all the different ways to share stuff. And I mean, I certainly learned a lot while I was writing the book. I didn't realize that you could or could not do certain kinds of things. And, oh, look, there's an option I wasn't aware of. And here's a simpler or more clever way to do this. Or really the big thing for me was how do you decide? I mean, okay, I have a file, I have this hypothetical PDF that I want you to have, and I can send it to you in email. I can send you a Dropbox link. I can send it to you in messages. I can send it to you over Skype. I can burn a CD and mail it to you. I can put it on a flash drive and hand it to you. I mean, there's lots of different ways I can get you a file. How do I decide which one of those ways is appropriate? And so I talk about that, and it's going to depend on how big the file is and what sort of technology, the technological sophistication of the other person, and what sorts of, do you know that the other person is using messages, for example? If you don't know, then don't try that, So there are ways, sort of an algorithm you can go through to try to figure out which sort of sharing is appropriate for a particular situation. And I found myself, because I struggle with this myself, not knowing what is the best way to do a certain type of sharing, I wanted to solve that for me, and now you get to read my solution.
And I love this, because I guarantee you the things that you ran down on that list that I've had on my list of, I'll get around to learning how to do that. Especially that has to do with photos. And I just never do, because frankly, it hasn't been as important as maybe it should be to me. There's always something else I rather would do or need to do. And so now I'm going to have the opportunity to accomplish some of those objectives, to become a little more knowledgeable. And it's not going to be painful at all.
It's not going to be painful. I mean, nothing in this book is hard. I mean, you have at most, and it's not even just that you have at most 3-page chapters, but more importantly, for any particular subtask, like, let's say I'm talking about, I don't know, sharing playlists. And there are various ways you can share playlists. Like, you can share playlists in iTunes, and you can also share them in, Spotify and Rdio and so forth. Well, if the topic of the moment, just this portion of a chapter, is sharing a playlist in iTunes, the way the books are designed is that has to fit in one column of one page, one narrow column of one page, with like screenshots and sidebars on the right. So it's very few simple steps that you're going to have to go through. Nothing is hard, but even though the steps aren't difficult, sometimes they're really not obvious. There were some things where I'm like, really? You can't do that there? I would have expected that you could. But I can just say, you click this first and then you click that. If you didn't know, you'd have to probably fumble around to figure out the right order to do things in. So I've done the fumbling for you. And it's not hard, it's just that you have to do things a certain way. And it might not be the obvious or intuitive way.
Okay, so I can't wait to get my hands on this book. How much am I going to pay you to get my hands on this book?
So it's a $10 book. I don't have the final page count as we speak, but let's say it's under 100, but not by very much. So it's a $10 book. And of course, it's available in all the usual Take Control formats. But we've also, as Tanya explained, what we're doing for all the crash courses is we are putting the individual chapters online, so that if you've bought the book and you're reading it and you say, well, I don't think my friend is probably going to buy the whole book, but they could really benefit from just this one chapter, you can send them a link and they'll be able to read that whole chapter online for free without buying the book. Now, what's going to happen is if they want to read more than one chapter, we're going to pester them. So they'll read one chapter and that'll be easy, and then they try to go to the next chapter, and they're going to have to sit and look at an ad for a while. Obviously, an ad for the book. And the more chapters they try to read online, the more annoying it's going to get past these ads. And I am not a fan of ads. At all, especially not, intrusive pop-up ads. But we were trying to strike a balance between making it as easy and seamless as possible to share little bite-sized chunks of this book, and yet not just give away the whole thing for free without, we want to make it annoying enough so that if you decide you really want to read 12 chapters of this online, by the time you've sat through 12 ads, you can say, oh, screw it, I'll just pay them $10 for it. So it's an experiment still. I mean, we've done a few of these, but we have to kind of feel our way through this and see if it works, if people like it, if people hate it, if people actually are sharing the tips and the chapters in this book. I hope they will. I hope what it does is that it brings in new readers who aren't part of the Take Control audience, who aren't part of your audience, don't know about our stuff, but someone cared enough to post a particular link to Twitter or Facebook or something, and now new people can say, oh, well, this is useful. If I can get a whole bunch of these in one place without any ads, I think that's worth a few bucks.
I've hoped so, and I'm like you. I especially hope that this will appeal to a different. It will widen the audience for Take Control, and people will recognize your styles and what great work you do. And that a great way to do that is to let them sample some of this stuff. So I think it's an interesting idea. I love the fact that you're experimenting with so many different ways of getting this stuff out there to folks, letting them get familiar. And of course, folks, if you are not supporting Take Control books, you're crazy, because they are a great way, whether it's the crash courses or the regular ones, it's a great way to get up to speed, become very proficient in things in a boiled down, focused manner. So, and this is one I'm really looking forward to. I think there's just going to be so many applications. This is a book that you'll be able to refer to people in so many different ways, I think.
Yeah,
so
I hope so.
Yeah, good job. Thank you. So if I remember correctly, we were headed toward a milestone, and I just wanted to touch on that.
Right. So Digital Sharing for Apple Users, a Take Control Crash Course, is my 49th Take Control book. 49. Whereas I am only 47. But so we've been doing this since 2003. We're almost exactly at our 11-year anniversary right now, actually. And so this is my 49th Take Control book. I have to say that what's next in my queue is a bunch of updates. iOS 8 and Yosemite have made a number of my books kind of outdated, And we really want to keep selling certain books, and so I have to update them. I have to come up with some new editions and some smaller updates to a whole bunch of books. So I feel like I'm probably going to be spending the next month or two mainly updating some of my older books. And then I will get to number 50. And honestly, I haven't decided yet what title number 50 will be. There are several possible candidates. But I will say, just to tease this a little bit, that when book number 50 comes out, I am planning a very special promotion. It's something that all of your viewers are really going to want to take advantage of. It's going to be a big deal. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think a lot of people are going to go, "Oh, really?" At least I hope they'll be very enthusiastic about it. So I can't tell you when book number 50 will be out, but I can tell you that the next one will be number 50. And apart from these just updates and new editions and things, the 50th actual separate title, and we will definitely be talking about that when the time comes.
Great. And I'll tease what the benefit is. One of the benefits, if you sign up and do everything necessary, will be milk and chocolate chip cookies at Joe's house.
There is a precedent for that.
Yes, I know. I'm hoping, Joe. I'm hoping. Hey, thanks for your time. It's great. Congratulations on this book. I love the fact that it's coming out of left field at all of us with something we can really use.
Thank you.
Folks, Joe's going to have to help me again. Digital sharing for Apple users at Take Control Crash Course. Got it. Go check it out at takecontrolbooks.com, folks, and refer your friends to this one. I think this is going to be an exciting book and an exciting new way to look at things. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at CashFly.com.